All right, look, I would like the trade deadline to pass. You done probably heard everybody give the grades and all this other stuff. So it's like I'm not about to be one of those people that go through every single transaction, every type of like deal, move, grade, and everything. No, 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 no. No, like there's no need for that. Look, there's other people that I'm pretty sure by now you done gone to, got a little bit more information. Hey, look, I was like, I understand there's competition out here. There's other people out here or whatever, got a little bit more knowledge than me whatever. I was like, hey, I was like, but this is me right now to go ahead and you here to hear what I gotta say about it. And so I'm going to do that while also I was like feedback of like a little bit of the big picture. I think with some of them because some of them got a little bit more foresight that you got to have with them. But I want to say some honorable mentions type of things. Whatever. Kevin Herter to the Pistons. I was like, I think that while yes, they need. I was like, they always you can always use shooting. I think that I was like, he is a different. He's not also just a spot up shooter. I think that is what's helpful in this. Is that he is somebody that can also sort of like get his own shot a little bit. You get what I'm saying? I was like, he got. I was like, he can move around. Like Duncan Robinson, like he will go to the basket at times. You might get him with a good cut or something like that, playing from the Miami Heat days. But I think Her gives you a little bit more than Duncan does in that sense. So I think that's I was like added help as a little bit more than like Robinson or something like that. McCain going to the Thunder. I'm not gonna lie, kind of pisses me off. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna give the Thunder, who can always get a young person out of nowhere, because of all their draft picks, because of all like their way that they could do whatever they want to. And what do Morey decides to do? He's like, let me go and help them out, and you ain't really getting nothing for it. Like you ain't get like it like you didn't get like you ain't getting nobody. You ain't got Isaiah Joe back. You ain't get Williams back. You ain't you like what we doing that for? What we helping the Thunder for? Like you get what I'm saying? Like I'm like, yeah, you ain't take nothing away from them. I'm like McCain, who I feel like, look, I was like, I always think, I was like, I remember people talking about like they got so many, they guard heavy up there. But I'm at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but you're guard heavy in a league that does have a like that uses guards a lot, and you never know when he might be needed. I was like, the playoffs is going to come up. You don't know. I was like, where he comes in for a game and he just busts somebody ass. You don't know. He was getting his rhythm back. He's still on, like he's in his second year. I feel like that was very just like what was the point of that? I don't understand. Like, wouldn't you just rather still have the assets? Like, you never know if something like if like guess what? If Maxi gets hurt, I was like, yes, he's not Maxi, but now you have a guard there that she's like, oh, okay, whoo, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I don't understand getting rid of somebody who can help you on a team at least this early. I was like, like maybe like off season, whatever. Um, I was like, contract will come if the contract will come up, whatever. But right now, and then you help the Thunder with that. I think that I was like, I don't follow that at all. Another I was like, I don't mention. Ayo Domasumu. I was like, I hope I hit that name. But uh 6'5" guard going to Minnesota who basically need a guard play. Especially they get Mike Conley back. Then I was like, then it's a double win. But you got a bigger guard. I was like somebody who I was like come off the bench. I was like can play with Ant. I was like you're not losing anything defensively. There I was like he fits in with everybody that's big on their squad or whatever. I was like, he could go downhill. He can. I was like, go ahead and he can also shoot as well. Like you ain't gotta feel. I was like that. It's just like he's just a one way type of person or whatever. I was like, can share some of the ball. I was like handling duties as well. That way you don't have Vincenzo and Edwards in that situation all the time. Um, yeah, so I was like, I think that was somebody they needed, and like I said, especially they get Conley back, it's definitely a win. All right, now to some of the bigger ones or whatever. Not really in any particular order, but just I was like, but just go ahead. I like what the Wizards did. I like that the Wizards basically gave up nothing for AD and the combination of AD and Trey Young. I was like, AD has been injured. We know this and stuff like that. So it's like they're buying low on a guy that has all star potential. So I don't feel like it's really like I think it's good. And Trey Young is sort of the same way. That it's like Trey Young also. I was like, I feel like gets really a lot of flack to me. I was like, I feel like some for a guy who the team was centered around those years in Atlanta, and I was like, however you want to say it, he made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And to be honest, if he didn't mess up his ankle, could have probably also, I was like, won that series as well. Um, had him in the playoffs, and I was like, yes, sure, it was maybe on the lower end of the playoff, but he always got him into the playoffs. I was like, shut up in big game, and then I do think that once the team started going away a little bit from him, that I was like, he still showed that I was like that he can adjust. I was like, it was always weird. It's like, yes, he's on the shorter side. I was like, he's going to be hunted on defensively and stuff like that. But I was like, he gave you amount of points and he gave you assists, but for some reason with Young, and I was like, cool, you can hit me with like the event numbers and all that other stuff. But I'm like, yeah, but he also never really had a team either. Like DeJounte Murray was like a clunky fit. And then after that, I was like, once they gave away Herder, then I was like, Collins, even though I was like, I know they had a little bit of a riff as well. I was like, him with the coaches and stuff. But I just feel like he was one of the few guys that rose to like, superstardom, and people sat on him like really quickly. But anyway, with this Wizards team, I also think it's one of the things too that's like, at some point, you got to just say whatever with some of these young people. Like, there's sometimes you can have too many young people on the squad. There's really no veterans there in that type of way. I didn't think Middleton and them was really helping in that sense. And I was like, I don't think there's nothing wrong to also accelerating the timeline to an extent. Like, yes, Davis, who is hella old because you could put the injuries there, and I was like, young. He's been in the league quite a while now too, compared to some of the other guys. But to me, I'm like, hey, you're not at a position where you're like, we're going for like we're like Golden State, where they were trying to do the two timeline thing. That was different because they were trying to do championship and also having like a good amount of young players. Whereas this one is just, we're trying to get to the playoff. Are you coming or not? And I think a lot of people like, look, some of them have had like, it's like been 2 years. SAR's been 2 years. I was like, Billy Ali done had like 3 or so years. Like some of these dudes, and I was like, done had a couple years or whatever. And by the time they roll around next year, I was like, look, ramp it up, get in where you finish, figure it out. I was like, come on, you don't need to do this rebuilding thing for like 5 years, waiting for that one perfect star that sometimes I'm like doesn't even come and be and is a star. Sometimes you got to develop your people. So I was like, I think in the long run, I was like, I think this will help them out. Even if it's not full on next year, they're like the fourth seed. Say they're like the ninth seed. Whatever. Those guys are playing meaningful games now. And that's why I think that is important and stuff like that. Speaking of which, Utah Jazz of hey, we're gonna wait for this potential dream guy that we're going to get. They didn't get Cooper Flag, but guess what? I was like, I was like, they got George now able to just, I was like, scoring like crazy. And even though they're still doing the tanking thing because they're still waiting, I was like, hey, you might as well try to get your pick, I guess, at this moment or whatever. But getting Jaren Jackson, I was like, I'm not really a huge Jaren Jackson fan. I was like, sometimes I was like, I'm not saying he's not great talent. He play on the defensive end. I would like he get buckets and score. He got an unorthodox way of playing the game. I was like, but sometimes with that, he annoyed me with somehow how he played the offense. Doesn't rebound worth nothing either. But I was like, I think that it's a cool team. If I was like, now you got him with marketing who could play the three because we seen in Cleveland when they had the ultra big crazy lineup that when they had the three people with Jared Allen, Mobley, and marketing, it worked until they basically had. I mean, not that they had to bail, but you had a chance to get Donovan Mitchell. So you can have that here with Kessler, J, and marketing. So I was like, and also too, it's like good. You can stop tanking totally. I know they're still going to probably try to do it the rest of the season or whatever, but we don't have to hear about their like just being like woeful pulling people, Will Hardy, and I was like, which is going to be crazy that when they get things rolling, that he's going to always like unless they just start just like getting at it, that he's going to have a horrible record probably in the end. But they'll tell you how great of a coach he is, but he's gonna have a weird record. Um, but yeah, no, I was like, I think that this works with this. I was like, this team. I was like, that you got to trade for people because it's like, especially now, you don't wait so many years to draft. You haven't gotten who you wanted. They really didn't want Abe Bailey, but they had to take him because I was like, in that draft, he was one of the four that people were. I was like, was pumping up. Um, yeah, so I was like that. I was like that worked for them. The Charlotte Hornets. I was like, going to do a video about the Hornets because they done finally got it going. I was like right before All Star break, but getting Kobe White. Now I'll miss Sexton. I was like I did like Sexton on the team. I was like don't get me wrong, he can also be a little bit sporadic and wild, but I was like I like his craziness. I liked his intensity. I was like, yeah, he'll turn the ball over and stuff like that, but I like that he was able to get to the basket and whatnot. I was like, I thought that he also understood when to sort of shoot the ball and not just sometimes just like I was like, look, I was like he learned from Cleveland to you having a chance at Utah even more to now, and I was like I thought his role was a lot more defined of what he was. But getting Kobe White, I think is I was like I think you're training something. I was like not that Kobe White doesn't go to the basket, but I was like to me Sexton is more of a guy that's willing to go downhill, and I was like and I think on a team that does have a lot of good shooters that I'm like he get to the foul line, but Kobe is able to one bust your ass for some points and also shoot the ball in a high volume and like a high percentage way that makes the team a lot harder to deal with. To where I think, especially because you got Carl Brenner and you got Mute. I was like I keep on mess up his name, but I was like, but because they're two dudes in the paint, guess what? I was like, now everybody can shoot. I was like, Bridges capable of shooting a three. I wouldn't call him 3-point shooter. You get what I'm saying? I would like Knipple, lights out from threes. Miller can shoot a three. Melo, you know what I'm saying? So it keeps that flow. It keeps I was like the whole space that they're trying to do. Um and but I do also think that that you also have a higher percentage of he can win you a game. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think Sexton would be able to win a game in a series. He would help, but I don't think he will win a game. Whereas like Kobe White to me can win a game. Or if somebody's off, Kobe White you can pull out and just be like, yo, he's about to get 20 and help us in this game. You get what I'm saying? So I think the firepower raises the ceiling on the team. Cause I was like, and there's also enough good defensive players too that I was like all that can help. Where it's like Grant Williams, like I said, he's not like to me not a 3-point shooter. Josh Green not a 3-point shooter. Zion James, I was like not a 3-point shooter. Can they shoot threes? Yes, well not Josh, but they can shoot threes. But that's not the same thing. So I was like Kobe White. I think really, I was like uh, help them in this situation. All right. And so that brings to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I was like, Harden got the whole headline and whatnot, but the whole package of Harden, Keon Ellis, and Dennis Schroeder, I think that's what you have to what you have to look at for. I was like, yes, they gave up DeAndre Hunter, and I do think that hurts just because he's a 6'8" wing, and I was like, while it had been crazy spectacular for him playing like how he was last year, I was like, to me, that still adds to your big lineup. But that big lineup, when you got two small guards, is helpful. Well, you don't necessarily have that same necessarily problem. I was like, yes, you got three guards, but James Harden 6'5", and I'm not saying he's a defensive stopper, but I am saying that he's 6'5", and he's like built like a tank. So it's not. So I'm like, it's not the same thing as 6 foot small Garland or whatever. Also, Garland injured quite a bit in a way that Harden isn't injured, and it's also one of them things too. Is like, yes, I was like, we know Harden mishaps in the or bad play in the playoffs, but would you rather have that? Rather have a guy that's there that's sort of iffy versus a guy that's not there, but also sometimes when he's there, it's sort of iffy as well too. Because it's not like Garland be balling out in the playoffs like that either. But I also think that I was like, I do think that the construction of the team, and I like maybe I just got more weird optimism of Harden playing good than his past places. I was like, his Houston struggles, he was the man, did not work. I was like Brooklyn. I was like that whole thing was just a clusterfuck of basically everybody having injuries and stuff. Um, Philly, I was like, you're the 1-2 punch, but I was like, but your your top two punches are two guys that I was like, as much as I love Embiid, I was like hit or miss with both of them, and also in a way that I'm like, I think that if I was like, I think that for this, for like, and this is why I think like, kind of like, hey, when Kawhi was healthy, I was like, don't get me wrong, James Harden still had bad game, but it was Norman Powell there, and it was Kawhi, but Kawhi got hurt, and Powell also had like that's when he would had the bad, that's when he had the bad game, and James Harden also had the bad game. There just might be more here to overcome Harden. First of all, Donovan Mitchell, I was like, he's going to play. I was like, if he's healthy, I was like, he can absolutely score the ball so crazy. I think that he had a different mindset, and he's also a different position and different player than like Embiid, to where you don't have to worry about it like how you did with Embiid, especially of a big man in that type of way. Because outside of like Joker and now Wemby, you those are really the two dudes right now that's really like full on like I was like consistent where you're just like, oh man, those dudes are gonna basically come out to play to basically get you 40 if they need to. I was like, there's that. I was like, you're hoping that Mobley is going to kick it up another gear, uh, for the playoffs. And I think who's going to benefit the most is Jared Allen, because as a guy that doesn't really get his own shot, I was like, Harden does really well with big men in that type of sense. And I think that he's going to be the one to give him looks and give Jared Allen better chances to score. And I was like, if you get him better chances to score along with Mobley, Mitchell, we know can just go on fire. I was like, Dennis Schroeder, I think is always good for at least about 15. I was like, when you give him a shot, Ellis is a dude you could put. He could play beside Mitchell. He could play beside Harden. He could play beside Schroeder or whatever, and guard a top guard and all that other stuff. That I think that I'm like, okay, they will lose somewhat in size, but they still got somebody that could guard a dude on the perimeter. And I was like, you can play with the lineups where you can have these 3 to 4 guards playing. Um, and I was like, I would also not be shocked that they do something crazy where they have Schroeder, Mitchell, and Harden on the floor at the same time with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Just because if you got those two back there, then then it's like, cool. They got them on the perimeter, and you have a different look of. I'm just saying, just play around with the stuff. They got enough time to that. I was like, I think so. But also, Harden is going to at least give you 2 games. He at least is going to give you 2 games. And I'm saying Mitchell can give you the rest of the games. So I'm saying I think that this is one of those combinations that I think actually can work in Cleveland favor. And James Harden had a chance to actually work in the way that I feel like we were optimistic about the Clippers, where it was like, oh, you got Harden, Paul George, Kawhi, except for you also got 3 people who all got like, Paul George, playoff. Kawhi Leonard, he plays great in the playoff, but guess what? Is he not? Is he going to play or not? James Harden. See, if you had all three of them, you don't feel that same type of like, oh God, or whatever. But you know, it's sort of different when you have when it's like you got to rely on. Here, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's necessarily on that same amount of relying on James Harden. That I think going into a series, he can still like he still is James Harden, but it's like cool. We might not have to put all our eggs in that basket like and his other stops that you had to do. So I actually think that the totality of that trade worked better than just like we got James Harden. I was like, I think it works out a lot better. Now I was like that could, like I said, that could just be me being optimistic in this sense. And I was like, I'm a little bit high on this situation with Harden than Harden in of itself, if that makes sense. Um, yeah. Uh, I was like, I think that's pretty much it of the ones that I feel like are really worth of discussion. Anyway, what do y'all think now? Some time to actually think about it, see it. There've been a couple games already as well with a lot of these players that you can sort of see the vision. But we're about to go into the All Star break in a way that's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, we're seeing some things, but that's really just going to just be a little bit them shaking off the rust before they start getting it, trying to get it rolling before they get into the playoffs. Yeah. So anyway, let me know what y'all think. Till then, peace out.